With cuts due Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, it's time to deliver my final Buffalo Bills 53-man roster projection today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino from the Draft Network, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Happy Monday to you, and thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day. And as a reminder to you, we are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. This episode is brought to you by BriteCo Jewelry and Watch Insurance. BriteCo brings you comprehensive, fast, and affordable jewelry insurance for as low as $5 per month. Check out your special offer for Locked On listeners and get covered in under 2 minutes at brite.co/locked on. That's brite.co/locked on. Well, folks, the Bills have some final cuts to make between now and Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And so today I'm going to take this opportunity to give you my final prediction for the Buffalo Bills 53-man roster entering the season. Now, listen, I acknowledge that the Bills' cuts can come at any time. I have the opinion that they will come sometime on Tuesday afternoon, and therefore this podcast will have some legs. And the Bills won't announce a slew of cuts early Monday morning and really just kind of take away the legs of this podcast, if you will. So there's a chance that could happen. And so if you listen to this after those cuts are made, well, then my timing was bad. But I do want to acknowledge that right off the bat, although I do think we're going to be pretty safe here and that the cuts will come sometime on Tuesday. Now, before I give you the cuts, we do need to talk about the punter situation because the Bills have released Matt Araiza. And the last time we spoke, it was after the Panthers preseason game, and Sean McDermott met with the media for the first time since Matt Araiza was accused of rape in a civil lawsuit. And so we heard his initial response to that. Then Saturday night, Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott met with the media for, I think, about 27 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, answered a lot of questions, and talked about the situation, and of course, confirmed that Matt Araiza is no longer a member of the Buffalo Bills. And so now the Bills need to find a new punter. And there's been some guys that have been reported as players the Bills have already worked out. There's some reports on some punters that the Bills have reached out to. And there's some punters that I anticipate being released that the Bills really should look into. And so I want to kind of just quickly talk about the options that I think the Bills should be considering and those that have already been reported to be the Bills punter. And so let's quickly talk about these. I want to give you some statistical numbers about the players and tell you who I want the Bills to sign. I do want to start with Brett Kern. And Brett Kern, as the recording of this podcast, is a member of the Tennessee Titans. And he's been an outstanding punter. He's been an all-pro. But they signed as an undrafted free agent Ricky Stonehouse out of Colorado State, who's been unbelievable this preseason. And it looks like he's going to win this job. And for Tennessee, Brett Kern, 36 years old, they could free up over $2 million in cap space by moving on from him. And it looks like they found a real gem in Ricky Stonehouse. Brett Kern's a Grand Island native. His family, Bills fans. To me, this is a slam dunk. If he becomes available, and I'd even consider trading for him, I think this is a slam dunk. You make him your next punter. I'm sure he'd love to finish his career in Western New York playing for the Buffalo Bills on a team that is a Super Bowl contender. So this is my choice. This is the guy I would want them to sign. He's 36 years old, 679 career punts, an average of 46.4 yards, a net of 41.4, which is good. Really good, actually. His average hang time is 4.3 seconds, and he has a touchback percentage of 4.7% for his career. Last season, in terms of EPA, which is expected points added, he was the 16th highest rated punter in the NFL. So right in the middle of the pack, keeping in mind that he had a groin injury last year, and he actually had COVID as well. So he had a couple of different issues injury-wise because he's typically one of the best 5 or 10 punters in the league. Would love for the Bills to get Brett Kern. It was reported that they worked out Ty Long. He's 29 years old, spent some time with the Chargers, has 151 career punts, 46.5 average, the net of 38, which is kind of low, but I think the Chargers, that's more about the Chargers than their own issues with special teams, right? They haven't been a good team in terms of special teams in a while. So that's why I think you see the discrepancy between the average and the net. Now, his hang time's not that great, 4.15 seconds. Good touchback percentage of 4.6% for his career. That said, last year, he was 30th in the NFL in EPA, which is very poor. Keeping in mind, Matt Hawk was 32. Michael Pilardi is a player that the Bills are working out. The Bills know him, or Bean and McDermott know him. He was with them in Carolina for a little bit, spent last season with Miami. 30 years old, 321 career punts, an average of 45.2 yards, net of 40.3, average hang time 4.33, touchback percentage of 5.6. His EPA last year was 17. Now, my concern with Michael Pilardi is the holding. Jason Sanders, all-pro kicker in 2020 for the Miami Dolphins, was unbelievable. Then he loses Matt Hawk. They replace Matt Hawk with Michael Pilardi, and Jason Sanders all of a sudden is the field goal kicker for the Miami Dolphins, and the Dolphins had the lowest made percentage of field goals in the NFL. I have concerns about Michael Pilardi, the holder. And so I think that is evidenced by those Jason Sanders statistics. But I think he's definitely a player that's an option for the Bills. If I'm not mistaken, they considered him last year as well. So he's very realistic in my mind. The Bills have contacted Tyler Newsome, who's never punted in an NFL game. He has had some preseason looks with the Cardinals and Chargers. Here's another player that interests me a lot, Joseph Charlton, punted for the Panthers and Jaguars. Not a ton of experience, 25 years old, 69 career punts, an average of 44.3, a net of 40, hang time very good, 4.56 seconds, and a touchback percentage of 5.8%. I think he's the young upside play here if the Bills were to go after a young punter. Those are pretty good. That 4.56 second hang time certainly caught my attention when researching these punters. Jordan Berry is a veteran, spent 6 years as a Steelers punter, last year with the Vikings, 31 years old, 463 career punts, 44.7 average, 40.2 net, average hang time of 4.37 seconds, which is decent, a touchback percentage of 4.5%. Last year, he was 20th in EPA. He'd be a perfectly reasonable choice to be the Bills punter. Kevin Huber, who is still the Bengals punter as of right now. He's been their punter for a long, long time, 37 years old. He's expected to lose out to a younger punter in terms of their competition, and he'll hit the market. Again, a veteran punter, obviously Super Bowl experience last year, has 657 career punts, 45.8 yard average, 41 net, hang time of 4.27 seconds. Touchback percentage is a little bit high here, a little bit higher than you like, though, 7.3%. He was 21st in EPA last year. And so those my preferred choices here, Brett Kern, obviously number one, Jordan Berry, Kevin Huber, Joseph Charlton. Just get one of these friggin' guys and move on here. Have your punter. I do need to mention Marquette King. Ryan Talbot, if I'm not mistaken, reported that the Bills have at least reached out to him. Former big-time punter in the league, hasn't punted in the NFL since 2018. Kind of a loud personality, and I think that has kind of pushed him off to the side in terms of the way the NFL's have the appetite to have a punter that brings attention to your organization, right? I don't think teams want that for the most part, and that's kept him out of the league, but obviously a very talented player. 33 years old, 446 career punts, average of 46.6, a net of 41, hang time of 4.36, touchback percentage a little high at 7.6%. So we got to mention him because the Bills have at least reportedly reached out to him, but I'd be considering some other options. So my eyes are on Brett Kern. I'll settle for Joseph Charlton, Jordan Berry, or Kevin Huber. Folks, you've all seen the videos of people online. They're trying to propose. They're trying to give a gift of jewelry, and the ring falls off the bridge. It falls into the ocean. It goes somewhere that you don't want it to be. You don't want to be that guy, and you certainly don't want it splattered all over the internet. The guys at BriteCo Jewelry Insurance will make sure you get a replacement for the full value of that ring, no matter if it's lost, stolen, or you just can't figure out what happened to it. Go to brite.co/locked on. It's the fastest, easiest, and cheapest way to cover your butt with the best jewelry insurance in the business. These guys at BriteCo are geniuses. They made buying insurance for your engagement ring, your watch, or whatever so easy you can get covered in minutes on your cell phone. You won't find a better deal on great coverage that's super affordable. Brite.co/locked on. We all hate insurance, right? These guys at BriteCo turn the whole experience around, so it's probably the easiest thing you can do for yourself this week. No excuses. For $5 a month, you can get totally comprehensive coverage, and it won't take you more than 2 minutes on your cell phone. Check it out, brite.co/locked on. You got to check out their videos over at BriteCo. They have a bunch of these hilarious videos that you can see for yourself, and you don't want to be that guy. So check out brite.co/locked on. Turo is the world's largest car sharing marketplace. With Turo, you can book any car you want, wherever you want it, from a community of local hosts. You can browse a huge selection of vehicles for just about any occasion or budget across the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. You can book a spacious SUV or minivan for a family road trip. You can get a classic or luxury car for a special event, birthday, or holiday. Or you can find affordable economy cars if you're on a budget and just need to get from A to B. You can test drive that new electric vehicle you've had your eye on to see how it fits your everyday life. Many Turo hosts can even deliver the car right to you. Every trip is backed by liability insurance. Terms, conditions, and exclusions apply. Ditch boring rental cars and find your drive at Turo.com. Let's get into this roster projection. Now, I do have to do some roster gymnastics here, so I'm going to present it a certain way, but I'm also going to explain some moves that are necessary. And the Bills have a lot of good players, and with that comes some creativity to try to keep as many of those good players as possible. And one thing you have to understand is that if players go on injured reserve before Tuesday at 4 o'clock, they're out for the season, no questions asked. They cannot play in 2022. And so you might have some injured players that you would like to be able to put on injured reserve because after 4 p.m. Eastern time, they can come back that season. I think all they have to do is miss 4 games. That's it. And you can bring them back after 4 games, and you can maintain that roster control in that roster spot. And so there's players that you'd love to put on injured reserve, but if you do it today, they're out for the year. If you do it after Tuesday at 4 o'clock, you can bring them back after 4 games. And so the Bills have some candidates for that. They also have some candidates that they can cut, and they don't have to be exposed to waivers because they're a vested veteran. So they can be cut and not be subject to waivers where other teams can claim them, and then they're free to sign with any team. And then I'm doing air quotes, wink, wink, they're free to sign with any team, a.k.a. wait in the parking lot for us to be able to put another player on injured reserve, and we'll bring you back right away. You're not actually cut. We just need you to sit outside for a minute. The Bills have done this literally every offseason. You've seen them do it with guys like Reed Ferguson and Tywan Jones. Every year they do this. And so I expect that to happen again this year. And so I'm going to project some of that here to make this all work. And so this might be a little more detailed than me just telling you these players at this position, because there are some roster gymnastics that I fully anticipate happening, and I have an idea based on history of who those players could be. So let me explain this to you. We'll start with offense. I think the Bills will keep 2 quarterbacks, Josh Allen, Case Keenum. Matt Barkley's cut. I think that's straightforward. I think they're going to keep 4 running backs. Reggie Gilliam, will count him as a running back for the sake of this. Devin Singletary, James Cook, Zach Moss. Now listen, here's where one of those roster gymnastic comes on. Tywan Jones, I think initially does not make the 53. He waits in the parking lot and allows the Bills to put a player on injured reserve, and then they bring him back. All right, so for all intents and purposes, the Bills will keep 5 running backs, but Tywan Jones, I anticipate, will be cut and then immediately re-signed after 4 o'clock on Tuesday. So actual cuts would be Raheem Blackshear and Duke Johnson. At wide receiver, this was really, really hard. And it really came down to the linebacker position versus the wide receiver position. And this will make sense once I get to linebackers, but I do have the Bills keeping 7 wide receivers for now. Stefon Diggs, Gabriel Davis, Isaiah McKenzie, Khalil Shakir, Jamison Crowder, Jake Kumaro, and Isaiah Hodgins. And I'll go ahead and spoil the linebacker piece of this because I couldn't keep both Isaiah Hodgins and Balen Spector, right? It really came down to that. My belief is that if Isaiah Hodgins gets cut and exposed to waivers, there's no chance he comes back. He's going to be a New York Giant. If you cut Balen Spector, there's a reasonable chance that you can get him back on your practice squad and nobody will claim him. And if somebody does claim him, oh well, right? Oh well. He's a nice, young, athletic linebacker that was picked late in the draft. Oh well. You got some sweat equity here on Isaiah Hodgins, where this guy's worked really, really hard. You can tell he's done everything he can to earn this team, and you'd hate to cut him and cross your fingers and hope to get him back on the practice squad. So I think this, for me, I'm just trying to think, like, who's earned it. And I'm not saying Balen Spector hasn't earned it, but I think you have a better chance of getting Balen Spector back on your practice squad than you do Isaiah Hodgins. So for now, I have the Bills keeping 7 wide receivers again: Diggs, Davis, McKenzie, Khalil Shakir, Jamison Crowder, Jake Kumaro, Isaiah Hodgins. Your cuts, your true cuts, are Tanner Gentry, Neil Pau'u, and then Marquez Stevenson. I tried to do some things with Marquez Stevenson where he initially makes the roster and then gets cut and gets put on injured reserve. But at the end of the day, I think the Bills are realizing with Marquez Stevenson, and this not just over the last 2 years in the NFL. It goes back to Houston. The guy's just always hurt. He just is. And so you could try to do these gymnastics, and maybe the Bills will. And sounded like Sean McDermott said he had a good camp and all that stuff, but he's just a hurt guy, right? He's just always injured. And so I think you just move on. At tight end, now this is another interesting situation. Had the Bills keeping all of them for now: Knox, Morris, Sweeney, Howard. And I think the Bills will try to trade O.J. Howard. And maybe the Bills trade O.J. Howard for Brett Kern to the Titans. Titans kind of need some tight end help. They like tight ends. They could use his blocking. But I think the Bills are in a position right now with all 4 of these guys where I think maybe they don't, like, in terms of not Knox, right? I think the other 3, I think they like them, don't love them, but don't necessarily want to move on from any of them. So for now, I have 4 tight ends: Knox, Morris, Sweeney, and Howard. And I know that's a big jump because in the past they've kept 2, but I think Dorsey's going to play a lot of 12 personnel. And you're going to need more tight end depth. And they're getting Sweeney and Morris going on special teams as well. So I don't think they're going to want to eat the $3 million of just cutting O.J. Howard. I think they're going to want to try to maintain some level of control there and either just roster him or try to trade him. But for now, I have him on the roster. On the offensive line, we got some more gymnastics to do here. I have the Bills keeping 9 offensive linemen: Deion Dawkins, Roger Saffold, Mitch Morse, Ryan Bates, David Quessenberry, Spencer Brown, Greg Van Roten, Tommy Doyle. And then I also have them initially hanging on to Greg Manns as the 9th offensive lineman. And then Bobby Hart initially cut. And Bobby Hart's a vested veteran, so he's cut for like a very short amount of time. Greg Manns goes to injured reserve, and you can bring him back after 4 games. He hasn't been healthy this preseason. I think the Bills are going to want to maintain control of a veteran, experienced interior offensive lineman because there's so many teams across the league right now that need that. And so he goes to injured reserve, and you re-sign Bobby Hart right away. So the 9 that I think the Bills will keep: Dawkins, Saffold, Morse, Bates, Quessenberry, Brown, Van Roten, Doyle, and then Hart, but the caveat being Hart is initially cut. Greg Manns makes the team initially. He goes to injured reserve, and you bring back Bobby Hart. I think the Bills really are going to like that 4-position flexibility that Bobby Hart gives them, especially when Bobby Hart has played left tackle, and Tommy Doyle's got that foot injury, and Quessenberry and Brown are more guys you like on the right side. And Quessenberry's your starting right tackle. I don't think you want to start moving Spencer Brown over to left tackle. So I don't think he's gotten any reps at left tackle with Cromer this offseason. And so you have that guy in Bobby Hart that you feel like can play left tackle. And so I think you do those roster gymnastics to maintain control of him. Ike Bucker on the PUP list, and then you cut Luke Tenuta, Tanner Owen, Jacob Capra, Alec Anderson. So hopefully that all makes sense. We had a lot of roster gymnastics there, but the Bills do this type of stuff, and so that's why I wanted to predict some of it here in this this final prediction here. With the NFL season right around the corner, I can't wait to make entries over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is my favorite daily fantasy resource. How does it work? You pick 2 to 5 players, and if they will go score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people. It's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport that you watch. That includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Euro basketball, cricket, and more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's literally that easy. So download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. So if you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign-up for an instant deposit match up to $100. All right, let's do the defensive side of the football. Defensive end, have the Bills keeping 5 of them. Von Miller. I just like to stop every once in a while and be reminded that Von Miller's a Buffalo Bill. How fun is that, right? Have you thought about this for a second? And I don't mean to derail the podcast. We saw the Bills play 3 preseason games. We didn't see a single snap of Von Miller, Jordan Poyer, or Micah Hyde this preseason, right? Those are good players. Defense is going to be fun with those guys out there. And we saw 6 snaps of Josh Allen. I can't wait. I cannot wait to watch his football team this year. Got some serious talent. So defensive end, Von Miller, Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, very clearly defensive end 3. Boogie Basham, Shaq Lawson. You cut Mike Love, Kingsley Jonathan, and Daniel Joseph. Defensive tackle, very straightforward. You keep 4 of them. Daquan Jones, Ed Oliver, Jordan Phillips, Tim Settle. That means Eli Anku, CJ Brewer, Brandon Bryant, Prince Emili are all cut. At linebacker, keep 5 of those. Tremaine Edmonds, Matt Milano, Terrell Bernard, Tyrell Dotson, and Tyler Matakevich. Then Andre Smith is suspended for the first 6 games. And then you have Joe Giles Harris and Balin Spector cut. And again, like I said with Isaiah Hodgins, I sat there and I must have wrestled with this for like 15 minutes at least. Because I initially had Balin Spector and 6 linebackers, and I'm sitting there like, how do I not put Isaiah Hodgins on this team? And my thought process was, you can still, I think you got a chance of getting Balin Spector back on the practice squad. I really do. I don't think you have any chance of getting Isaiah Hodgins. He's going to be a giant if he's cut. And that's why I did what I did. And I hope the Bills think similarly. I'm not going to lose any sleep if the Bills lose Balin Spector. I like him. Nice young player. Like the athleticism. Plays hard. All that stuff. But I feel like just Isaiah Hodgins has earned it. So that's why I did what I did there. 5 linebackers. And then you kind of have a hedge there because Andre Smith's coming back in 6 weeks. And I think you're going to have Giles Harris and Balin Spector on your practice squad. And you're getting special teams play out of multiple tight ends. Like I feel like there's a realistic path here to do this. At corner, I have the Bills keeping 6 of those. Dane Jackson, Christian Benford, Kyer Elam, Taron Johnson, Saron Neal, Cam Lewis. I think the Bills really need to think about rostering that 6th corner with Tre'Davious White on the PUP list. So I have them cutting Jamarcus Ingram and Jordan Miller. But with Trey White being out, I don't think you want to go into a situation where you only have 5 corners. And so you have Dane Jackson, Kyer Elam, Christian Benford, and like you're one injury away from not being in good shape, because I think you want Saron Neal to be able to play multiple spots, but not necessarily one of your starting outside corners. I think Cam Lewis is just a really important depth player that the Bills need to keep until Trey White is back. And they've used him a little bit over the last several years. The Houston game last year, they've protected him a lot on the practice squad, so other teams couldn't claim him. He's shown some versatility to play some safety. I have a hard time with no Tre'Davious White at this point, letting go of and not keeping 6 corners. And look, I think we have to be realistic about Trey White. The Bills play in 11 days or something like that, 13 days. He hasn't practiced. I think that they're going to get him on the PUP list and ease him back in. The Bills aren't going to rush anybody back, especially Trey White. This is a long-term play. And I think they want to make sure he's ready when he comes back. And so I think he'll have to miss, 4 games or something like that? And they need to hedge that and make sure that they roster a 6th corner. At safety, super straightforward. Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, Jaquan Johnson, DeMar Hamlin. You cut Nick McLeod and Josh Thomas. Specialist, Tyler Bass, Reed Ferguson, and then hopefully Brett Kern, or one of those punters that I said. That gets you to 53 players. Again, that's 53. And then my roster gymnastics, Tywan Jones and Bobby Hart are both released, then signed back the next day. Greg Manns originally makes the 53-man roster. Then he goes to injured reserve. And then you have O.J. Howard as kind of a placeholder, where I think there's a real chance that he's traded or they move on. But I don't know that that's going to result in him fully sticking around. And so I think that's kind of a piece of this pie that they'll let linger for a little bit, let the cuts play out, see who winds up coming available and what opportunities are there. But if they don't find a trade partner, then I think they'll cut one of these tight ends. I think it might be O.J. Howard, because I think he gives you the least special teams appeal of Tommy Sweeney and Quentin Morris. So there you have it. We'll see what happens. They're due Tuesday at 4:00. And so in terms of our programming here, it just depends on when the Bills make their cuts. We'll either do herd mentality tomorrow, or we'll talk about the cuts, or we'll flip-flop them. I'm going to do some predictions this week, might have a guest. So we have a lot of good discussion this week before we flip the page, and then it's like regular season mode. And if you're new this year, I can't wait for you to be part of our game weeks. Do a very comprehensive job of looking at opponents, talking about challenges, and I think by the end of the week, you're going to be really informed for that game. You're going to feel good about talking with your friends about the dynamics of the upcoming Bills game. And so stick with me here. It's going to be a fun season. Make sure that you are subscribed. Would love it if you took a second to rate, review, and share the podcast. Have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to catching up with you again tomorrow.